Hey everybody, this is DM Mike, and this is the next campaign diary for DOIP. We are approaching the end, and we had kind of an M. Night Shyamalan twist right near the end of this campaign, and that is with a character's death. We lost William in our last session. We're going to go over that, how that occurred. I'm going to make this one kind of short and quick here, and just how I handled that as a DM. Maybe there's something here that can help you if you're a new DM, because most likely this campaign is being run by people who are, coming into Dungeons & Dragons for the first time, or they're DMing for the first time. How do we handle character death? Now, this is just the way I did it. There's millions of ways of doing it. I think it depends on context. When does it happen in the campaign? How many people you have, your friends, you're playing with strangers. Like, there's all kinds of things that affect this kind of stuff. But hopefully just some of my ideas here will help you if this happens in your campaign. So let's make this quick, right? Not that I want to gloss over somebody's death, but I want to get down to kind of the nitty gritty here of what occurred. So we finished off at Logger's camp. They have cleared it out. They have rescued Wester's brother, who happened to be there, and he told them of all the things that were going on, that he was hiding up in a tree and had been stuck there for days waiting for these things to disappear, and they never seem to disappear, those onks, whatever they're called. But of course the characters rescued him. And he decides to go off in Neverwinter. He's going to go by boat, so he's going to ride all the way down the river there, back to Neverwinter. They told him hey, your brother's there. First of all, Wesker, he's left Fanlin, so he's no longer in charge, so you can go see him there, but also let him know what happened here at Logger's Camp, right? So they wrapped up Logger's Camp pretty easily. Now it's time for the Summoning Circle, and this is where all the action takes place. This is where the death takes place in Neverwinter Wood. Now, the Summoning Circle in my campaign is mysterious. It cannot be found by normal means. I mean, you could wander around Neverwinter, but you could wander around for weeks and probably never find it. But Marigold knew exactly where it was, so she gave them a little acorn, and they were supposed to bury it when they made the decision, when they're ready to go find the Summoning Circle, right? So they bury this acorn, and it gives birth to a goblin scout, kind of a goblin scout, almost like Gollum, right? I mean, just someone who will lead them to the location. I played this track here from Dante's Inferno. Dante's Inferno, great soundtrack. Totally recommend it if you're playing Curse of Strahd or any kind of gothic campaign. Really, really well done. Matter of fact, I was going to bring it up in one of my soundtrack recommendations. It's on my list to do. Great stuff. I played a small track, minute and 42 seconds, and during that music, I described and narrated this creature coming out of the amniotic fluid in the sac and just tearing through and birthing right there in front of them. Well, they followed this thing to the Summoning Circle, and of course, here's where I changed things up. Let's go ahead and look at the map here for the Summoning Circle. First of all, not a one-to-one remake. None of my maps are. As you can see, I've changed things. The tree lines, the way things are laid out. If you look at the original map, Gorthok really couldn't move around all that much. Didn't make a lot of sense of where he was summoned, because just based on his size, he couldn't even fit through the summoning stones. So I wanted to change all that. And so that's what I've done. I mean, it may not work for you, but this map is available, I believe, or I think it's going to be. Either it is or it's going to be in the, oh gosh, I never can. The Dragons of Icespire Peak DM's Facebook group. Whew, that's a mouthful. It should be in there at some point. But that's what I did right now. I also introduced a lot of different characters. I wiped out all the anchorites. They're just dancing around, making fools of themselves there. And I put in the orcs again, who are guarding the location. I put in a shaman who is summoning Gorthok. And I also put in a chain brute who's watching over this. All right. So there's a lot of little things that I've added into this portion of the adventure. So here come our heroes. They're wandering through, and they see this. They send out the owl. I think Glim has a familiar, so he sends out the owl, kind of scopes the area, and they notice all these creatures, all these enemy types. And in the middle of the Summoning Circle is the captives from the Loggers Camp, and also the missing militia group from Fanlin. They're all there. They're being used as to steal a doom term. They're being used as a gore nest. This is the sacrifice for Gorthok, and unfortunately, it's already occurred. The shaman is already bringing in Gorthok, and he's being summoned and forming right there in front of him. So they make a very, very quick plan here. Two of the characters, Rav and Brash, are going to disguise themselves through illusion spells and whatnot to make themselves look like orcs. They're going to bring in Norbus, Brash, and William, and act as prisoners. Well, they did that. No problem. No problem at all. Very easy to do. They come in through the tree line. The problem is the dice have a different story to tell. Some of the guards immediately stop them as the summoning is going on. This is a very sensitive moment, a very highly guarded moment with all the different orcs around, and they're kind of suspicious. And so I had them rolling deceptions and intimidation scores, and they were just turning out really, really bad. things were getting kind of dicey, and then William just says, okay, I'm breaking free, because they like fake tied some rope around them to make them look like prisoners, but he just initiated the encounter because I think he could see it was going downhill pretty quickly. So that starts the encounter. Now here's the problem with the encounter. Nothing that I did. But because you have two players who look like orcs, well, the orcs immediately attack everybody else but them, right? Because William feigned breaking out of the ropes and started attacking. So really, during this entire combat encounter, Brash, William, and Norbus, specifically William and Norbus, were taking more hits from anybody than anybody else because we got two players who look like orcs. They're not getting hit at all. So the Chain Brute and the orcs are hitting them from long distance. The Shaman is wrapped up in the event, all right, wrapped up in the summoning. And so they're fighting and fighting and fighting round after round after round. They're getting pummeled, the only ones that don't look like orcs. And every time to the end of the round, I would say, look, you lightning kind of cascades and smacks on the summoning stone. There's a rumble, and Gorthok is coming to existence. Well, this lit the fire, I think, on the Brash, who went right after the Shaman, I think around round 2 or round 3, because she just couldn't get there. There was just so much stuff in the way. She did finally get there. The Shaman is in a trance. He's not paying attention. He's summoning Gorthok into this moment. And unfortunately, she did kill the Shaman, but Gorthok had already been summoned. It was too late. It was like round 3, maybe going into the 4th round, and it was just, he was there. He was just kind of, the tusks were growing out, the eyes were rolling out of the meat sack, the skin was forming, and it was just, this creature was in existence. It was just finishing off its last bits. So they're fighting, and William and them are just barely hanging on. They managed to bring down the Chain Brute, which was knocking people left and right. A really good addition, I'd recommend. If you got the players and they're pretty high level, put the Chain Brute in. So orcs are going down, the battlefield is changing, and then when they finally get rid of the last orc, Gorthok has been completely summoned, and they hear something, a voice, a distant, disembodied voice coming from the creature, saying that it is Phandalin. Well, basically, Phandalin will burn. Under my tusks and hooves, I will destroy it, right? And so it starts to lumber and move and turn to face the exit of the summoning circle. And in the exit, down the ramp, you can see down the ramp, William is standing in the way. Now, this is not how he died. He did not get trampled to death. He didn't get gored to death or anything like that. Gorthok immediately takes off. All the other orcs, except for 2, I think, kind of ran away. But everything is destroyed. And here's where I thought, oh, great. All right, we're getting to the chase map. Let's put that up there. The chase map. I had this 3-panel, huge map. If you run tabletop simulators, it's like 3 tables big. And I was looking forward to it. It's going to be kind of like Return of the Jedi, where they're going really fast. They're on horseback, and they're chasing after Gorthok. Gorthok is on his way to Phandalin to destroy it. And somewhere about midway through, there's going to be even more orcs on horseback to join the fight. Like, I just wanted this whole thing, right? And that did not happen that evening. That got completely wiped off the map because of the next events. So we have this moment. Gorthok is now charging. William is in the way. He does a dex check, easy enough, get out of the way, right? But he wanted to change something up. He wanted to be able to grab onto the creature as it went past, right? So we stopped the game, talked about how we were going to do this. I know it sounds like a strength check, but the turns had already happened, so we were trying to figure out, is this feasible? Can we do this? But I felt like in the end of the day, it was okay. It was cinematic. Let's go ahead and do it. So he successfully gets out of the way, but I did set the DC number for this pretty darn high because it was kind of out of turn, and it was, I needed it to be difficult, and it should have been difficult because he's also wearing big, heavy armor. For him to hold on, being charged at and hold his grip on the tusk of this creature was going to be very, very difficult. Well, it was one of those moments at the table that we all love as DMs where somebody rolls and they just barely make it. By 1 point did he make it. Of course, that's great. Eruption at the table. But here comes the part that I wasn't expecting. Now, I thought for sure, look, he's going to stab him in the face. He's going to, climb on top and just stab away and whatnot. And we're going to have this chase start off in a very awkward way. No, that's not happened at all. A couple weeks ago, we talked about this homebrew method where you could take like a fireball jewel or whatnot, and you put it in a bag of ball of bearings, and it turns into basically a claymore, right? And it's homebrew. You could probably Google it and find it yourself. I was okay with this device. I like the idea of being, the ingenuity of these kinds of things and players making up their own stuff. Totally fine with it, right? Well, I thought this device would be used on the dragon. It was not. It was done to Gorthok right then and there. And what he did was, while he was on Gorthok's face, right, with the tusks hanging on for dear life, reaches in, gets that pouch, and shoves it directly into the nostril of Gorthok. And that just creates a chain reaction and a huge, massive explosion. And the explosion was even bigger because William is wearing the necklace of fireballs. There's like 2 or 3 fireballs still on his neck that also go off at the same time. Needless to say, nobody walked away from that combat encounter or that explosion. There was no coming back from that. The damage was astronomical. It was huge. There are no pieces of William left. You could not bring this character back. And of course, Gorthok was just slabs of meat all over Neverwinter. It was a gloriously huge, bombastic explosion and death. You could see it outside Neverwinter, almost like a little mushroom cloud. It was a very small napalm, practically, explosion. Just boom! And it took me by surprise. I think it took other players by surprise. And really, the sacrifice was good. William saved the lives of probably hundreds of people in Phandalin, about 100, and also, changed the scope of the adventure, which is a good thing. I'm not upset. Now, I talked about, now I can't do this chase. Don't misunderstand me. That is not a DM's like, dang it, now I can't do it. No, it's totally fine. Yes, I prepped it and spent all those hours, whatever. We do that as DMs all the time. But it changed. The whole course of the adventure changed because of players' actions, and that's the way it should be. And I am totally on board with that. So what do? We have a character death kind of in the middle of an adventure. Now, luckily for me, these things may not work for you depending on when it happens in your campaign. But luckily for me, it was about 3.5 hours into this session that this happened. And I felt like this is a good time to stop. We're done, right? We're done for the night. It was, you're always waiting for that moment, a good sweet spot to stop an adventure. This was it, for sure. Now, here's the thing. Because this is how I handle this player death. First of all, we stop the campaign, like I just said, right? We stop and we talk about what just happened. We want to make sure the math is right. We want to make sure everything was done, that everything was legit, okay? So, and it's kind of a blow to everybody, suddenly. So we kind of talk about those kinds of things. Now, afterwards, and I kind of skipped over a moment, and we'll get back to this. I'll go back to that point. I offered the player kind of an option, right? You can either walk away. You could be done with the adventure. I think that's totally legitimate. Some people may just be, what, that was satisfying for me. I think I'm done. I think I'm good with this. Not that they hate the adventure or don't like the people or the DM, but it just feels like that was a good conclusion, right? So I always offer the option to leave. If you really want to just be done, maybe next time you can come. You don't have to. If you want to just see how it wraps up, that's fine. The second option, of course, is to create a new character. Now, we don't have time at the end of this adventure now to bloat this on and try to get that character this new character to level 5. So he's going to come in level 5, and just kind of pick up where we have left off, right? So there's no time to do all that stuff. Maybe you'll have time in your campaign depending on what you're running, but in this campaign, this box set adventure, there's just no more room for that kind of thing. So he'll be level 5 as he comes in, and he did choose to make a new character. Now, going back a few steps, I would say another important thing to do is to role play the moment when it happens. Don't just shut down the adventure like, oh, that's it. No, role play it. Other characters, including NPCs and players, need to react to that situation. And so we actually played for about 10 more minutes before I stopped the game. And that was to role play out people's reactions. Norbus was hit pretty hard and began to feel like this wasn't worth it. We just lost one of our best guys. And was this really worth all this time and energy? He could be right, he could be wrong. Who knows? But he had to react to it. And I had him sitting next to the crater, just kind of dumbstruck by what happened, and him picking up some of the dirt from the explosion and putting it in a little tiny vial to keep in remembrance of what just happened. Other characters too kind of consecrated the ground and just, had to interact with this scenario that happened. So don't cut that short. Make sure their characters can react to the situation, including NPCs. And then, of course, the last thing we did was we stopped right there, right? We stopped the adventure and talked about the next thing to come, what we're going to do next. So this really just depends on, where you are in your adventure, how much time you spent. And like if it happens in the first 30 minutes of your 5-hour game night, I probably would say, look, we're going to keep going. I still want to role play this moment out, but you might want to go make a new character or have something ready to go, and come back, right? Because that's a little bit different. But you know what? It was a great session, a little M. Night Shyamalan twist moment for us. We do play this Friday, and we're going to pick up. The new character has already been created. I'm going to be making the tokens next for it, and we're going to pick up right where we left off. We have about 1 or 2 sessions left, maybe 2, and I think we're done with this campaign. I really can't see much else to do, and especially now, the story now has hit this climax. I mean, it's just like, wow. Something dramatic just happened. And this is going to affect NPCs back at Fandolin as well. Old Carson, and especially the love interest of William, Abatha Gwyn, who was the girl they rescued from Umbridge Hill. She was starting to take a liking to him. She was a warrior, a fighter in her old life. And, you know, this for certain will make her want to get revenge. So DMs, don't forget your NPCs. They have to have that reaction. They have to be a part of the story and react to someone that was close to them, so they can take part in it. And it's going to go in different directions depending on what your story is. But for me, definitely 2 of those NPCs are going to want some major revenge going forward. All right, guys, that's all I got for you. I hope that was enough. If you're new to a new DM, this is your first campaign, don't be upset or swayed by a sudden death. It's all good. It actually makes your story richer and more engaging. And I'm really surprised, honestly, it didn't happen a little bit sooner, to be honest, because just the amount of risk people have been taking. There have been a lot of close calls, but this one was just really, really unexpected. And you know what? I'm excited. I'm excited to see where it goes from here. All right, guys, that's all I got for you. A couple more sessions, and we're done. See you in the next one.